My name's Jan Rather. I'm the Infrastructure Engagement Specialist in the Mayor's Office on the Neighborhood Services team, joined by a couple of my colleagues here from the Neighborhood Services team, as well as folks from DOMI and our wonderful staff here at the Healthy Active Living Center. Thank you all for joining us in person and online. Really excited to have a really good turnout to talk about this signal replacement project on Frankstown Avenue. We're really excited to share with you and to hear more from you. One housekeeping thing before we get officially started. We in the Mayor's Office have just started a Mayor's Office newsletter. There's a QR code here. There's a couple other around the room to get signed up for that newsletter. We'll send about one email every 2 weeks, I think. And if you have trouble with the QR code, if this is not your style, my colleague Laura here in the middle will be happy to help you get signed up for that newsletter. Also, just want to take a quick second to introduce the newest council person for this district, Kari Mosley. I don't know if you want to come up and say a couple words.
All right.
Thanks, John. Can we give Jan a round of applause for all the good work that they do over at DOMI? I know DOMI takes a lot of hits, but they do very good work, so I really want to take a moment to give them a shout out. I'm not going to speak long. I'm just here really to listen, but I want to thank everybody for the support over the last year. This is our third week in office. I do also want to give a shout out to Stanford Lions. That's my community outreach in my office. Stand up, Stanford. So he's going to be somebody you're going to be interacting with a lot. But we're really hitting the ground running. We're getting out, to all the communities and all, like the city's a website mechanism is still getting set up. There's not a lot of information, but as y'all know me, I spend a lot of time doing digital organizing, not only here but around the country. So we have our own website set up. You can go to councilmanmosley.com and get a lot of information on how to get in touch with us. We not only can you reach us at 412-255-2137, but we also have a 24-hour voicemail number. We have a text message number that my good friend Jamila used this weekend, that there was a snow-covered street just right up the street from here, and we got a text message on Sunday morning. I was able to reach Director Hornstein on Sunday morning, and me and Stanford drove up there on Perchman Street off of Blackador, and we was able to take care of it. So this is 2024. So it's not just landlines. You can reach us via text. You can reach us on every social media platform. Most of them are Councilman Mosley, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, but on Twitter, because Twitter has that character limit, so it's Counselor LOR Mosley, Counselor Mosley on Twitter, but on all the other social media platforms, you can reach us there. So we're going to be in the community in real life, but also virtually, and Jan, thanks so much for the opportunity. I'm going to be sticking around. I'm not going to cut out, even though I do want to get home to Chelsea and the boys at some point tonight. But I'm going to be here, and I thank you so much for the support. And again, we're going to do this together. This isn't about what I'm going to do. It's about what we're going to do together. So this is a we proposition. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Councilman. All right, well, I think we'll get started with the agenda for the evening. So we've already done a couple of introductions. We'll do a couple more. Just go over some brief housekeeping meeting protocols for folks in the room as well as on Zoom. We'll give the project background, talk about the existing conditions, the preliminary designs that DOMI has come up with and that we're asking you all to provide feedback on. And then we'll talk about the next steps. And then sort of unique to this engagement, we're going to do some discussion and breakout. There'll be opportunity to ask some general questions in the room, but we have stations set up around the room with DOMI staff and consultants who will be able to answer questions about specific intersections along the corridor. So I already introduced myself, Jan Rather, Infrastructure Engagement Specialist, joined by Lila Bouabdalawi, Project Manager at DOMI, Sean Stevens, a Project Manager at DOMI, and Amanda Purcell of Traffic Planning and Design as well. So just a couple of norms that we try and establish going into these meetings. Want to be cognizant of folks' physical and psychological safety, so I'll have a slide about that in a second. We want you to be here to listen, to learn about this project. We'd like you to disagree respectfully. You may not love everything you see, but there's ways to share that frustration or that disagreement in a respectful manner. Want to appreciate the differences in the room, be open to new ideas, and I think most importantly, be present, take in this information, provide the feedback that you think you need to give on this project. All right, so I'm gonna hand it off to Lila to talk about the project background.
Thank you, Jan. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for giving us your time this evening. We are here to talk to you about the Frankstown Avenue Signals project. I will get into some project background, but a little bit of an overview of the purpose of the meeting. So the purpose of the meeting is to present to you our preliminary designs and gather your feedback as we move forward with the project. And we will be holding questions until the end. And the questions during the presentation portion, we ask that you keep those limited to entire project. And then when we break out, specific intersection questions can be asked at our boards or online. There will be a breakout meeting. So next slide, please. All right, so here's a look at the project area map. As you can see, here's Frankstown. Each of the blue traffic signals represents a location where there will be a full traffic signal replacement. The two locations with the red stop signs, Sterrett and Braddock, there will be all-way stop control, four-way stops. So we are proposing to replace the signal at Braddock with an all-way stop. We'll talk more about that later. And then the yellow warning sign shows where there will be a pedestrian crossing, a raised crossing here at the Healthy Active Living Center. So here's a look at the intersections. There will be 6 signal replacements at Mertland, Lang, Homewood, Collier, Brushton, and Blackador. The 2 locations with an all-way stop and traffic calming are Braddock and Sterrett. And then, as I mentioned, the crosswalk with traffic calming at the Healthy Active Living Center. Okay, so project purpose. The purpose of this project is to improve the safety along the Frankstown Avenue corridor for all users. The project extents are from Mertland Street to Blackador Avenue, and this project extends through Homewood West, Homewood North, and Homewood South. All right, so a little bit of corridor background. The Frankstown Avenue corridor was identified as a priority corridor in the Homewood Mobility Plan. It serves as a major vehicular and transit route that connects East Hills to the city's East End neighborhoods, and is also a part of the business district for the Homewood neighborhood. As far as the existing roadway layout, we are 36 feet curb to curb as far as roadway width. There are 2 8-foot parking lanes, one on each side, and 2 10-foot travel lanes. Looking at the crash history on this corridor, in the past 3 years, there have been 55 crashes, and 6 of those have involved pedestrians. So here's a look at the project timeline. We began preliminary engineering in May of 2023. Here we are today, January 2024, at our public meeting. We will begin final design in September of 2024, and we are slated to begin construction in December of 2025, and it will last 18 to 24 months. So now I will pass it over to my colleague Sean to talk a little bit about traffic calming.
Thanks, Lila. Hi, folks. My name is Sean Stevens. I'm a project manager with DOMI, and I handle a lot of the traffic calming and traffic safety work throughout the city. I'm sure many of you are familiar with traffic calming as a whole. Speed humps are sort of the bread and butter of the traffic calming program, but there are many different traffic calming elements in our toolkit. And so tonight I'm going to talk about our design approach for this particular project as it pertains to traffic calming. So just to recap, traffic calming is meant to reduce speed, crashes, and improve general safety overall, whether that's for pedestrians, drivers, and bicyclists. So corridors like Frankstown Avenue are a different context than our more local residential neighborhoods, or neighborhood streets, I should say. Our neighborhood traffic calming program, again, which is sort of mostly speed humps, is focused on those local neighborhood streets. But for a corridor like Frankstown, with being the primary transit, EMS route, and through corridor for the neighborhood, we cannot install speed humps on every block of the street. And so we have to focus on doing spot speed control and a focus on intersection improvements for pedestrians. And so from the toolkit, we're looking at 3 different traffic calming elements for this project. The first being a raised crosswalk, which is elevating the crosswalk to enhance visibility and reduce speed. So those really do act sort of like a speed hump in totality, where the pedestrian crossing is the flat top portion, the flat top portion of the device which pedestrians cross, but drivers have to, as they're approaching it, slow down and actually physically mount that to go over it. We can couple that with also raised intersections, which act like raised crosswalks, and then they elevate the entire intersection to really make it a priority zone for pedestrians. That also reduces speed through the intersection. And our last item, could you press the slide one more time to pop open the curb extensions, which are basically a sidewalk extension that we do mostly at intersections to create more pedestrian space, which shortens that pedestrian crossing, narrows the turning radius for vehicles, so when they're making that turn, sorry if I was blocking the screen, when they're making that turn, it helps slows them down through the intersection, and it reduces speed, like I mentioned. And so we can couple those in as, or layer those elements in throughout the project, and we'll talk more about specific locations as we progress. And I'll pass it back to Lila.
All right, so now we are going to get into the proposed design. If you can go ahead and hit the next slide. First, we will look at existing conditions. So this is Frankstown and Mertland as it is today. And as you can see, our traffic signal infrastructure is quite aged. And there are no pedestrian signals for crossings. The curbs are in varying conditions, and in general, there could be some improvements. So before looking at each of the intersections individually, talk a little bit about some of the general design elements. So all of the intersections will include curb extensions, and at locations where there are PRT bus stops, they will be designed to accommodate the approach to safely unload passengers from the PRT vehicles. At each intersection, there will also be accessible curb ramps at crosswalk locations, new signage and pavement marking, and updated street lighting. So what will the intersections look like? Here is an image of one of our recently completed traffic signal replacements. So as you can see here, nice new curbs, curb extensions, ramps, and we have the pedestrian crossing signals. You can see the black signals with the yellow backplate really enhances visibility. So this is kind of what we're going for. If you can go ahead with the next slide. So as far as the construction itself, talk a little bit about potential detours or impacts. So a lot of the work will be will not involve roadway closures. This will be intersection specific, corner specific. So any closures, full closures will be limited. There will be individual lane closures with flaggers as necessary throughout the process, and if detours are needed, they will go around the block. So there is an easy cut around for each of those. So now we'll talk about the designs for the traffic signals. Once again, these are the 6 locations where we'll be doing replacements. So here is a look at a new traffic signal, and I'm going to point out a few elements. So number 1, down here we have our base mounted controller cabinet instead of the yellow boxes that are mounted on the poles. 2 is the overhead signals with reflective backplates, and then 3 are nameplates, nice new nameplates at every intersection. And as far as the pedestrian accommodations, we have the countdown pedestrian signal, the audible pedestrian push button that vibrates and also makes an audible message, and then updated street lighting up at the top. All right, so now we'll talk a little bit about the intersection-specific design. Like I said, these are on the boards around the room, so there will be time to look a little bit more closely and provide feedback and comments on specific intersections. But I will note a few things. So as you can see, the curb extensions at this Mertland intersection do wrap around to the side street, and so this also reduces the pedestrian crossing distance on the side street as well, and helps with those Mertland crossings. All right, so here's Lang, a similar layout. As you can see on this one, the curb extensions do not wrap around, but we do have curb extensions on the Frankstown Avenue corridor, as well as the other improvements that I had previously discussed. And here is the Homewood intersection. So one thing I'll point out here is that you can see on the side streets there are painted curb extensions. That was due to roadway width limitations, but it also does provide some additional safety improvements to the side street and the intersection as a whole. All right, so Collier, we've seen these elements before, not too much to. And then Brushton as well. You can see that there are no curb extensions on the side street, once again, with limitations. And lastly, Blackador. So, like I said, you'll be able to see those designs more closely. We just kind of wanted to brush over them quickly to kind of introduce. I believe I will be handing back to Sean. All right, so now Sean will talk about the two unsignalized intersections as well as the crossing at the Healthy Active Living Center.
All right, so the plan is there will be two unsignalized intersections through this corridor. One of which is currently already unsignalized, and that is Sterrett Street. That is currently now an all-way stop. So all four legs of that intersection are stop controlled. And then there is Braddock Avenue at Frankstown. That signal is planned to be removed and replaced with an all-way stop control. You may be asking yourself, why are we doing that? And really, it is to sort of right-size the intersection control given the amount of volume that is entering it. We want to make sure when we did our analysis, that particular intersection had lower volumes than some of the others throughout the corridor and didn't really support the need for an entire signalized intersection. And so we can replace that with all-way stop control. But what we are doing is layering in traffic calming elements at these two specific locations that have all-way stop control, and that would be with the raised intersection. So you can see, just one more second, sorry. You can see here as an example of a raised intersection that actually exists in the city of Pittsburgh. It is in Hazelwood Green. That was basically built from scratch, but we can sort of use those same elements throughout the city, and we're planning to on this project. And so as you can see with the raised intersection, again, it creates a priority pedestrian zone that raises up vehicles to the same elevation as pedestrians to make sure that pedestrians have the primary rights of way. And so this is an approach that is leading up to it, just like a speed hump, so they have to slow when they're approaching the stop sign, which helps induce compliance, really. And then also, with curb extensions layered in, makes the turning radius a little shorter as well, or turning radius smaller, which inherently makes drivers go slower through the intersection. And lastly, shortens that pedestrian crossing so pedestrians can get across the street or in that mixing zone quicker. Next slide. So bird's eye view, plan view here is sort of same elements, just showing you from the top, curb extensions that can wrap around at Sterrett, and then the raised intersection that is through the entirety of the intersection. And again, at Braddock, same sort of situation. I wanted to also make a plug that we are aware of the Parks Conservancy project at Baxter at Baxter Park. We are coordinating with them, and we do know that that is a priority location for pedestrians, not only for the park itself, but for the Student Achievement Center. And so we really want to make that a really better place for pedestrians to be, to cross the street. And so the intention is, with layering in traffic calming elements, it will make it a safer crossing for all. And so, sorry, last thing I was just going to mention is there is an Engage page for the Baxter Park Improvement Project if you want to learn more about that. Next slide. And then lastly is the mid-block crossing right outside of this building. I know that this was a long-standing request for a better improved crossing, and so we took that into consideration with this project and added it into the scope to do a mid-block crossing right outside of the senior center here, which will layer in a multitude of pedestrian safety improvements, which would include a pedestrian beacon, also known as a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, which is a lot of syllables. All that matters is it's a pedestrian beacon that basically flashes when you press a button to alert drivers to yield and come to a complete stop for pedestrians when they're making this crossing here. Added into that, too, is a raised crosswalk. So again, that acts like a speed hump inherently, that this is raised. Cars have to slow down as they're approaching it, which also helps induce that yielding compliance and coming to a stop. And then lastly, there's some pavement markings added in there with high visibility crosswalk, advanced yield lines, and really doing the full Monty with also curb extensions to shorten that pedestrian crossing and open up those sight lines as well. So now I will go back to Lila.
All right, so I will wrap up this presentation portion by talking about next steps for the project. So we're currently gathering community input, and then we will incorporate that community input into our design. And then looking ahead, we will begin final design and developing construction plans in 2024 and are aiming to begin construction in late 2025. So now we will take a little bit of time for questions and discussions. Like I said, if we could please keep these limited to project, related to the entire project and not intersection specific, since there is time reserved for those types of comments and questions. This is my contact information. You are welcome to reach out to me with any sort of questions or comments related to this project. I'd be happy to talk with you more about this project.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Domi, for giving the presentation. Again, we're going to use this time. We'll take, 10, 15 minutes to answer kind of project-specific questions before we go into the breakouts where Domi and their staff can talk about specific changes at the intersections. If anybody has a question, just feel free to raise your hand, and I'll bring the mic over, and you can ask them. And then, Rebecca, if there's any questions online, just let me know.
Yes, sir. My name is Fred Logan, and I'm a member of the center. And this is a long-standing traffic safety-related request. And that is for in front of the center and in back alley, would you please install some modern lights? It's a major problem. If you come in early in the morning, it's dark, and you all will see as you leave here. And in the alley, it's even worse. And so we need modern lights installed along with this program. And my last question is, for a follow-up, who do we contact?
So I'll get contact information. It's up on the screen, but I understand it's hard to read, but I'll get it to you. And then I'll hand off to Domi to answer questions about lights.
I can take that question. Through the project itself, at all intersections, there will definitely be new lighting at all intersections. And I know your specific question is in front of the senior center itself. And in the back, yes. So multi-step answer. In front of the crosswalk here at the Healthy Active Living Center, I do believe we did have it scoped for lighting at that crosswalk to make sure that it is bright and apparent. So there will be lighting on the street in front of the Healthy Active Living Center. As far as in the alleyway, that is not a part of this, but we do handle lighting, and so we can bring that to the right people. There is a project manager dedicated to do lighting, and so we can add that into our queue for lighting. There is a larger DOMI project that is doing lighting all across the city that is over $10 million, I believe, that is in development right now. And so if that is not already part of the scope, we can make sure it is added for the alleyway behind the center here.
There's a question online, so I'll bring this back here.
When will the construction begin for the center? So I'm assuming, again, they're talking about this building, the part of the scope that includes work around this building.
Okay, so probably be in the spring of 2026.
Wow. Y'all got us up here in 2024.
I see a question here. I'll go to Ms. Zinna. I'll come to you right after you.
I see you're doing the sidewalk here for the center, which is a good thing. What about the senior building that's down between Mertland and Homewood Avenue? Why not a crosswalk for them right out their driveway?
Those are the types of things that we do want to hear about in this meeting. So could you repeat that one more time for us if, to make sure that our consultants can write that one down?
A crosswalk between Mertland and Homewood Avenue where the senior building is, where Homewood House is, for them to be able to come out their front door, out their driveway, and be able to cross the street right there to go either way for bus stops, instead of having to go all the way to the corner.
Gotcha.
And that would also be a calming for that block between, whether you do the intersections the way you're going to do them, you still need a calming for that senior building that's right there.
Yeah, these are the exact types of things that we'd like to hear as feedback as a part of this project to make sure that we aren't missing anything as we have scoped this. So thank you.
And I think there was another question at this table right here.
Why does it take so long from the end of the construction plan in 2024 to the beginning of construction? It's like a year and a half, right?
So that 2024 date is when we will begin the final design process of the project. And I don't, yeah.
The 2024, fall of 2024 is when final design begins. It should take about a year to finish up that. And then in December 2025 is when we think construction will begin. And since with the concrete work that is involved with the crossing, that will probably be in the spring, when right after construction begins.
Here, and then we'll go over here.
I have two questions. One is a piggyback off of what you just said. Being as though that it'll take so long, is the funding actually already allocated towards this project as a capital improvement?
Do you want to answer? Or do you want to answer? That's closer. Yeah, the funding, the city has already secured the funding for the project, so they have received a federal grant to take it through design and construction. And so the federal process is a little more exaggerated than, say, just city budget gives them some money to do a project. So that's why it takes a little longer.
And just for folks' awareness on the budget front, every year the the mayor proposes a budget and then it gets approved by city council. And so in that approval process, that's part of what, sets the budget for subsequent years as well. Our team, and I'm sure, I think I saw many of you in this room this summer, it was part of that budget engagement process. So definitely happy to hear more feedback about that then as well. I think you were next. Go ahead.
So, as a part of the design and the development team that's designing, the architect around these easements and that, are you reaching out to local architects and engineers that may identify as Black or African American, that may identify as Aboriginal American or Indian or Indigenous? Or are these just already contracted architects and engineers that are working on the development and the design?
So for all of our projects, we do have a DBE percentage that we stick to. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about it. Sean's been at Domi longer than I have.
Yeah, this is always a tricky question because a lot of this lies with outside of Domi. There's an entire department dedicated for procurement through our Office of Management and Budget. So we aren't the real subject matter experts when it comes to procurement, but there are stated WBE, MBE, and DBE, which are all disadvantaged, women-owned, minority-owned business enterprises that are goals that the city has to meet in order to do the proper procurement system as set up, I believe, through our code. Again, please, I'm not the final say on that, but that's my understanding. And so the way that it works is we have to operate within those bounds. And so any of the contractors, consultants, and others that are brought on through that process, they have to meet those goals.
Is there any way that contractors, is there someone in the department specific being, and maybe the office of management budget or some office entity that can reach out and say, hey, I'm a contractor, state certified or whatever. How do I?
I'm going to pass this off to Rebecca.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Rebecca Ranallo from the mayor's office. I just want to share that procurement modernization has actually been a big priority for this administration. And that's going to be actually one of the sections that you'll see regularly in the newsletter that we encouraged you all to sign up for. We're going to start publishing on a bi-weekly basis what procurement opportunities are live around the city. As part of that process, and I know, Jan, you've worked closely with our Office of Business Diversity, which is led by Chuck Durham, who is fantastic. We're doing more engagement in the communities where projects are happening with contractors from those communities. So, for example, in the north side, we just kicked off a project on Chestnut Street. Before we even went live with that project, we held a meeting at the project site that we promoted widely to contractors in the north side to educate them about how to get through the procurement application process at the city, because we really want to reduce the barriers for local businesses and diverse businesses to participate in these business opportunities. So again, please sign up for the newsletter so that if you have these businesses in your networks, you can share these contracting opportunities with them. Thank you.
All right, I think you had a question earlier. Are you good? Okay. I'm going to go here, and then I got you in the back.
Yes, remind me again, what was the purpose of the curb extension? And also, does that present a danger for cars that are turning because there's a much narrower space?
So curb extensions, this is a good one. So the purpose of curb extensions is twofold, well, we'll say threefold. One is to provide more space for pedestrians as a whole, which then shortens that pedestrian crossing here. It also opens up sight lines so you can see pedestrians and see others within the intersection to make sure that whenever there is a car parked here and someone is trying to cross, that person may be blocked by a parked car there. And so really it's to open up sight lines, better visibility for a safer crossing experience. There was one more thing, the turning, yes. So could you go to the next slide for me in plan view here? So it does make it a slower turn for vehicles, but the way that these are designed is to accommodate I believe we used a fire truck for the turning radius for these. So there is a software that we use that we can plug in different sized vehicles to make sure that they can make the turns. Albeit slowly, it still is a feasible turn for them to make. So these are right-sized for those conditions. So it will be a slower turn, but it's not going to be one that is unattainable.
As a part of the project, what are they going to do with the wires at some of the existing intersections? Are those going to be submerged, or are they going to remain there? And second thing, for the budget, are they also including trees or some type of greenscape, softscape to go around those intersections for kind of curb appeal?
The existing overhead utilities will remain, but some of the traffic signal wiring will be underground. So there's a variety of what you will see out there when it finishes up. We do not have landscaping in our design scope at this point in time, but we're only in preliminary where we could just kind of lay out the curbs and figure out a main scheme. So when it comes to final design, if they have the budget for that, that would be a question for Lila and Sean.
I'll just add on to that. Could you go to the previous slide for me? Sorry. Is with these sidewalk extensions and curb extensions, there are opportunities for landscaping, and so those can be areas for areas for landscaping. There's also opportunity to do some planters within this area that also helps make sure that drivers that do enter this raised crossing area do not also use the sidewalk itself, and so it acts as a physical barrier, vertical element to separate out the sidewalk zone and the mixing zone that is the raised intersection. So there are opportunities for landscaping as a whole, and that's something that, as Amanda had mentioned, we can explore in final design.
So you had a question?
Oh, I'm loud enough. I got a question. How's everyone doing this evening? I got a question that I'm just kind of concerned. If you begin to start doing development right here in front of the senior center here, across the street, I know they park across the street, and that sidewalk has been like that for years. I'm in my 50s, and that sidewalk has been like that for 50 years. I can only speak for the first 50 I got. Is there any budget or money to fix that sidewalk across the street when you all begin to fix or put that divider in the middle of the street, that raise on the street? Because their cars get hit a lot over there. And can we do anything with that sidewalk? Is there any budget, any money anywhere for that, possibly?
So what I can say is in the immediate area where we are doing the crossing, there will be some sidewalk work taking place. It will not be the entire length of Frankstown Avenue. There is, though, a separate program through the city, which is closing the gaps for sidewalks. I know Homewood has been extensively mapped where there are sidewalk gaps, broken sidewalk, things of that nature, and I think it's just a matter of when there is direct funding for that program to then move forward with construction and design. But just once again to recap, through this project there will be some sidewalk work, but not for the entire extent of the Frankstown corridor per se.
I think I saw a question over here.
I would just like to ask, is there opportunity for a hard copy of this presentation? And how long will you be receiving feedback from the community so that people who may not be present here would still like to be able to contribute their comments? How long will you be open for that?
Thanks. And I'll let Domi answer the amount of time, but also there is an Engage PGH page. Rebecca can throw it in the chat. I think if you got the invitation to this, it was on there as well. So please continue to provide feedback there. The other piece that I'll add is this presentation will be uploaded to that, as well as the virtual recording that's happening right now. So you will. Yep.
All right, so we will be accepting feedback through February of 2024 to keep up with our project schedule, but definitely share the Engage page. I encourage you to leave comments there, leave comments on those comment cards today, and talk to us individually. We would love to hear your thoughts.
I have a question.
Comment cards also have the link for the Engage website, so if you leave your comment, if you don't have a comment, you can keep the link.
I'm going to go here, and then over here there's a couple questions.
So is it true to say that you guys have already made your decision on what you're going to do for this community? I'm not understanding, if we're here at this meeting, anything that we say, is that going to affect your decision on what you have already decided to do?
That's why it shouldn't be a year.
Thank you for that question. So we are still very much in the early phases of this project. We are in the preliminary engineering phase and, working on initial designs. So absolutely not, nothing is final. We do want to collect input, and we will analyze the input, do what we can to work with you all. I mean, we want to make this, the goal of our projects is to improve the city, and specifically in the communities, we want to make it the best for the communities that we can. So this is, working together to make that happen. So nothing is final. This is our currently proposed design. We did do traffic signal warrants. We did the process of studying each of the intersections, analyzing, and this is what we have come up with based on the preliminary analysis.
So during your study, is the reason why you picked those streets, is it because of a lot of accidents?
Did everybody hear that question? The question was, did we pick those intersections because there were a lot of accidents?
I mean, during your study, why and how did you pick those particular areas?
Yeah, so the Frankstown corridor was actually identified in the Homewood Mobility Plan, which took a very, very holistic look at traffic safety issues throughout the entirety of the neighborhood and identified a multitude of improvements that were needed, some of which were addressed with a couple traffic calming projects throughout the neighborhood, but Frankstown Ave was one of the larger project scopes that did need its several $1 million worth of work, as far as I can remember, but which is why we needed to also have some federal funding and go after a grant. So there was a lot of preliminary traffic planning work going into the Homewood Mobility Plan, which is probably a 50, 60-page document, which I think there was a number of engagement sessions throughout 2020 and 2021. And I see some familiar faces from those in the crowd, and you probably have met me. But I hope that answers your question. But I can expand upon it if you want to talk more after.
Yeah. I'm going to go back here, and then I'll come back up to you. And then there's some online, yeah.
Wait.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm Debbie Sterling. I'm the recreational leader here at Homewood Senior Center. And there's an immediate need for cameras outside of this building.
Come on, talk about it.
I've been working here for 5 years, and I come very early. And I did my research. I drove around from building to building, bars and everything. They all have cameras. It's a safety issue specific to this building. This is the only building. I've done the research that doesn't have cameras. We need cameras. Our precious seniors are here. I come early in the morning, very early in the morning when it's still dark, and it's not safe.
So I don't want to speak for Domi, but I don't think cameras will be part of this scope, but we can certainly talk about that and share that. We go here, and then we're going to go online. There's a couple questions as well.
My question, are there any community development block grant funds involved in this project?
No, I do not believe so. It is.
Is it grant money?
It is grant money to the federal program. It's the CMAQ, right? Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Grant.
Okay, since we're doing so much on Frankstown with our transportation, let's take a broader scope, and why don't you guys work with the ex-Port Authority and see about getting some bus shelters on these streets for our seniors, okay? Since we're gonna be doing all this redevelopment, let's put that. I mean, work with them, get together with them, let's use this opportunity. You guys are writing grants, write some grants for that.
Let me hand this over to Domi real quick.
It's bad enough they can't get on the bus and go downtown anymore.
So we have been coordinating with PRT on this project, and we will continue to coordinate with them. There are several locations in the Homewood Mobility Plan that were identified for potential additional bus shelters at new locations, and I believe two or three of those are within our project extent. So we are closely coordinating and are hoping to be able to.
And I'll add too, as you go to the breakout boards, feel free to do that. We're going to take a couple questions online, and then we'll go to the stations for, again, you can ask these types of questions at the stations as well, but want to get answers to folks online as well.
Thank you, Jan. And I just want to acknowledge to the staff here that regarding the cameras, we're making a note of that. That wouldn't be in DOMI's jurisdiction, but public safety and DPW certainly should be looking at that request. And so we'll send them a little nudge on that tomorrow and let you know what we hear back on that. No problem. Okay, there's quite a few questions that the online folks have shared. We'll start with, will the center be closed anytime during construction? I'm seeing heads shaking. No, that shouldn't be an issue. So programming at this building should not be impacted. Good news there. Another question about surveillance, camera surveillance. Will there be increased surveillance along the Frankstown corridor after completion of this project?
As far as surveillance goes per se, DOMI manages the traffic, but not necessarily public safety. We do coordinate with public safety. We have a monthly coordination meeting with them to make sure that any of our projects that may be new for the community, whether it's a different traffic operation or just changes in the right-of-way generally, making sure that the police and fire and EMS know what those changes are in advance and know what the enforcement measures would be needed.
Then the city just get approved to put in stop lights. Would that be something that would be considered to implement the project on this part?
There is a pilot to do automatic red light enforcement. That is still in the policy development, and so I can't speak to that fully right now. I can provide as much information as you need, or as much information as I know, but really that stands with a different bureau than the two of us. So it's a sort of a joint effort between traffic and a policy wing of our department.
Rebecca, a couple more questions online.
Thank you, Jan. Our centers are open from 8 to 4 during the week. Parking will be an issue for staff and seniors that park on the street. Is it possible for our seniors to park in the Coliseum parking lot without any issues? I'll just go ahead and answer that for DOMI, that we are always happy to try to arrange those partnerships with other organizations. I think the the ownership question at the Coliseum, I believe, has still not been answered. But if at that time we do have a new manager, operator of that building, we would happily work with them on that. And then, this is a good question, and it's one I've had the opportunity to learn a lot about since I got this job. DOMI team, could you talk a little bit about just some of the traffic engineering best practices around four-way stops versus signalization of an intersection? Because the question here is, or the comment rather, I don't think having a four-way stop at Frankstown and Braddock is an improvement when it comes to safety. Please consider keeping the traffic signals there.
So the question pertains to, stop signs versus traffic signals, particularly to the Braddock conversation. So really we're trying to right size, stop signs and traffic signals are meant for traffic control and intersection operation, right? It's making sure that it can handle the volume of cars, pedestrians, or bicyclists that are entering that intersection. Given the amount of people are entering Braddock at Frankstown, it doesn't really warrant the need for a full traffic signal and is really more right-sized for a stop sign based off of the data that we have, that we've collected. So we are trying to, again, right-size the intersection control and use stop signs. When we ill-place traffic signals or stop signs, those can be abused and misused by drivers. And so part of this is sort of a psychological exercise as well of knowing what drivers are going to do. And so there's been a lot of studies and a lot of data that goes into trying to, again, right-size intersection control. And so with all of our engineering expertise, we use those as a basis. And again, the stop sign is the preferred treatment here. And so we recognize, though, that that can be, it's not going to be 100% perfect all the time. And so that is why we're trying to layer in those traffic calming elements of doing curb extensions, raised intersections to make sure that it is the best crossing experience that it can be for pedestrians. Do you want to add on?
Yeah, I'll just add on to that a little bit. So the safety really comes from the roadway design. So the curb extensions that are narrowing the roadway when you're approaching, and then the traffic control device is kind of a separate thing. And so, and as Sean said, pairing the traffic calming measures with the always stop has been shown to be safer than a traffic signal in these types of situations.
So we are talking about Braddock and Frankstown Avenue. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah. This was just a question online. It was more about the stop signs versus signals, but.
So who's making the decisions for that? I need to know, where are you getting your data from? Who's making the decisions for our community to take that sign, to take the street lights out and put stop signs? Do y'all understand where that is at?
So again, that's exactly the type of feedback we want to hear. I think what Domi is trying to convey is that, despite what most people might experience, that the solution that Domi is proposing here, and again, it's not finalized, would have equal safety results for drivers as well as pedestrians because of that hard infrastructure. It's not just a stop sign, it's a stop sign with a raised intersection that forces cars to slow down as well. So we're really trying to look at the balance of those needs in this situation. But again, we want to hear that feedback at the stations.
But just to be clear, I don't think you
really answered her question. The Homewood Comprehensive Plan, I think it was done in 2017. And I think that the last time the community spoke to Domi, I was at that meeting. And there were a lot of things that were said. And it seems like you all haven't really, you've made a plan, you're presenting a plan based off of data, not what we said.
Right, that's what
which I have questions about the data. Is it public? Can we see it? Can we know anything about the data that matches up with what we're saying so that we can be more informed with what we're asking for?
Yeah. So I think part of this too is that there has to be something to show for you all to respond to. So again, like we've reiterated, this being preliminary is to give you all something to respond and provide feedback on. So, but I'll let Domi speak to the data as well.
Thank you, Domi.
I just want to reiterate back to, we understand that you're giving us something to respond to. But from our last meeting that we had, this is not what we asked for. This is all based off of the data that you all, from what you said. This is all mostly based off of the data. None of you all were in the room, well, I wouldn't say none of you all. It was this young gentleman that I specifically had a meeting with, and
Panini Chowdhury, yeah.
And we had several conversations around, like, long story short, that specific year there was 700 traffic calming requests. I asked the question, how many of those came from this community specifically? And I would be curious to know from those traffic calming requests, how much of that information did you take from those traffic calming requests and implement it to this design? Because that is straight from the community 311 response, and then back to, you're giving us something to show us, but it doesn't sound like it's anything of what anybody asked for in this room, which is why we have so many questions.
Yeah, so this is towing the line between trying to meet where there are demonstrated crash issues, like on a primary corridor, which is Frankstown, but also what is the lived experience of everybody in the neighborhood on your street is definitely different than what the data can show, right? And so trying to tow that line can be hard, and there are different avenues that DOMI has set up to sort of make sure that we do tow that line. This is a larger corridor project that is tasked with doing pedestrian safety at intersections, at signalized intersections on a larger corridor. When it regards to just general traffic calming throughout the neighborhood, that is sort of handled through the neighborhood traffic calming program, which does see an inordinate amount of requests, more than we can typically fulfill in a day. And I know that I'm still not answering the heart of your question, but we're trying to meet all the needs based off of what the data is and what lived experiences are, and sometimes those just don't always add up to what is the fully desired request. But
all right, I do want to make sure we save time for people to talk about specific intersections. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to take one more question online, and then we'll go to the breakouts. And again, if you have these questions, feel free to continue to ask them at the boards. Our staff will be happy to try and answer your questions at the boards as well if you have general questions.
And I just want to more directly answer the question. If we have missed something from a previous round of input that you all feel we haven't heard, let's keep talking about that. Let's compare that list with the list being showed here tonight. That's why we're having this meeting. So we will all be around after the meeting. There's an Engage page where you can put those comments. The project manager has shared her email address. I think you all know how to reach most of us that are here. There's like 5 of us here from the mayor's office tonight. Let's compare those lists and figure out where we may have missed some things and go back to the drawing board on some of it. That's why we have so many meetings about projects like this, because they go through iterations. There's a question online about input. I think I probably just answered it about how we take input on these projects, so I think I just answered that. Sorry, guys, I'm just scrolling through all this, a lot of chatting. Okay, the rest of the comments in the chat are discussion about the 4-way stop versus the signal. So we'll go back to the office and figure out a way to try to share some of the data about that with you all, and make sure that information is shared in the follow-up email to everyone who signed in to this meeting, as well as on the Engage page. And I wanted to acknowledge, I think he might have left, but I feel bad that we didn't acknowledge that the zone police commander is in the room tonight. I think you probably all know him. Okay, but because there were a lot of questions about public safety, again, just want to highlight to you all that your Zone 5 commander is here tonight, and I know he really wants to engage with everyone on some of these topics as well. So even if some of the questions raised aren't in DOMI's wheelhouse, your police commander is here, and we can make sure we follow up on those with the police as well. Thank you.
Yeah, my name's Larry Mercurio. I am the acting commander of Zone 5 until February 9th, whenever I'm officially promoted to commander. So I will be here in this zone for as long as I'm here. So I'm definitely your representative and your liaison between the police and the community.
I'm a contractor, an engineer, and a developer. And there are certain places on Frankstown that are being developed. And like businesses, I'm looking, do you have, are you actually doing a architectural engineer analysis on businesses that will be developing in the traffic that you want? Like I live in Frankstown, right by Dallas Avenue, Dallas and Frankstown, where you see all the firewood down there. That's me. I'm the general contractor, and I'm planning on building a wellness center. And we'll have, I just recently turned 62. I've been living in Homewood all my life. And so I pretty much know the atmosphere and the direction, the atmosphere of the traffic and everything. Like if you need to be able to build a business and you want to be able to protect senior citizens. I just recently was not concerned as much as I am now that I'm a senior citizen. I'm 62 years old. And I'm very aware of the traffic and the development and the process of which people live in Homewood every day. And I have beginning stages of glaucoma. And so when you mentioned about the lights, you know, if there's certain lights, they bother my eyes, and it's hard for me to be able to see pedestrians at that certain time, and it's also effective to my health. So if you're engineers and you're architects, are they using the health issues in mind, not just what pedestrians or that's one of the main issues, but the health issues of the lights that may be, like in some other communities, they're too bright. And like the lights in here somewhat bother me. And on the computer, the blue lights on the computers and the cell phone. So what I'm trying to say is, are you considering health issues at the same time when you're installing these lights? Because that may be an issue for some of us who are up in age. And then we're also looking at businesses, certain places that are being developed that we need. Like if you're going to build a senior citizen or wellness, you want to make sure that it's safe for people to come into my business. And there's also another business down that way, a playground and everything else. So are the lights that you're going to be installing, are they engineered to consider health issues to our eyes, people who have bad eyes, wear glasses, or whatever other health issues? Have you done an impact study on the businesses?
I will let Domi answer that question, but we'll make a note of that. I do want to make sure people have time to ask questions at individual stations. I would encourage you to ask those questions again. If you don't get a satisfactory answer at one of those stations, come find one of us at the end, but we'll make a note of it and we'll try and get you an answer by the end of the night.